Hello! Good day everyone! Our topic today is about hyperbolas. We are now in topic 4 of quarter 1. Okay, definition and equation of hyperbola. The competency at the end of the session, the students define and determine the standard form of equation. So let us first define what is hyperbola. A hyperbola is a set of points in a plane whose difference of the distances from two fixed points is a constant. So meaning from each point nga naa sa hyperbola, say for example point P nga naa sa parabola o ang point Q, ang distances from this fixed point to the focus, one focus and another focus, ato pa the difference between them is equal to C, and ang difference po sa distance from one focus to Q minus another focus to the other focus, distance from the other focus to Q. So pariha ra jud kuno na. So it's different from ellipse because ang ellipse kay whose sum of the distances from two fixed point is a constant. So meaning from point P to one focus is D1 for example, and this is D2. So D1 minus D2 is equal to C, whereas in point Q we represent this one as our D1 minus D2 is also equal to C. So meaning pareha ra og difference. Okay? Now let's talk about the different terms used in talking about hyperbola. So the first one is we talk about foci. So the foci, which is kaning pink parts, they are two fixed points. We call them f sub 1 and f sub 2, whose differences or whose difference of the distances from a single point on the hyperbola is a constant. So explain na ho ganina, di ba? Okay, and then another one is we have what we call as the center. The center is here, the color brown. So it is the midpoint between the two foci, kaning pink, and the black ones. We have the mga black vertices. Okay, so ang ato pag-discuss later. Okay, then we have what we call as the focal axis. So when we say the focal axis, it is the line segment that connects the foci whose length is 2c. So from this point, F1 to F2, the line segment connecting the two is what we call as the focal axis whose length is 2c. Anong 2c man? Because from the center to a focus, the length of that is c. So kay duha man, so meaning 2c. Okay, another is the eccentricity whose ratio is c over a, and then in this case c now is greater than a. So sa ellipse, ang major axis kay mas taas man sa focal, meaning ang a is greater than C and B kanto sa ellipse. Okay, then we have what we call as the vertices. They are the 2 points of intersection between the hyperbola and the transverse axis. So when we say transverse axis, the transverse axis is the line segment connecting the two vertices. So basig matinga mo karon nga ang sa ellipse, ang line segment nga nag-connect sa duha ka vertices is ang atong gitawag didto is major axis. Karon ang tawag na is we have what we call as the transverse axis. Nganong transverse axis naman pod? Tungod kay the transverse axis na tungod kay dili naman pwede siya matawag og major kay dili naman siya may kinatasan. Ang kinatasan na karon sa mga axis is we have the focal axis. So the focal mas mubo na karon si kanang transverse, and ang mao gihapon ha ang distance from the center to a vertex is A. So that's why the length of the transverse axis is we have equal to 2A. So again, transverse axis is the line segment that contains the foci and connecting the two vertices whose length is 2A. Okay. Another one is we have the conjugate axis. Unsa man pong conjugate axis? Okay, it is the line segment, actually mao ni dire. It is the line segment that is perpendicular to the transverse axis and goes through the center of the parabola whose length is 2b. So actually, it is the line segment connecting the two co-vertices. Mao na pud to nga ang distance is 2b. Okay? Then co-vertices dili na co-vertices. Co-vertices are two endpoints of the conjugate axis. So another term is giusog na pud nato, we have the conjugate axis for the hyperbola, and then for ellipse it is called minor axis. Kay major magud ang kinatasan, so minor ang usa, and then focal gihapon ang sa connecting the two foci. But in this case, again, the focal axis connecting the two foci. Then we have the transverse axis connecting the two vertices, and the conjugate axis connecting the two co-vertices. Okay, is understanding the hyperbola important to us? Yes, very important because it is applicable in the different day-to-day activities or sa atong mga palibot, di ba? So, naka-form ang hyperbolic system sa mga kanang pagkuan sa airplane. So, naay mga different mga maporma ang mga hyperbolic nga radio signals. Okay, it is applied in architecture, kanang mga design, and then engineering, and we have the equation of a hyperbola in standard form with vertex HK. Okay, so if the center is HK, naara tay duha ka klase sa hyperbola. Pareha pod sila sa ellipse na there are two cases, not the same as sa parabola wherein na ay upat ka cases ang mahitabo. But in this case, duha rata. So the first one is ang transverse axis is parallel to the x-axis, and another one is the transverse axis is parallel to the y-axis. So when the center is HK, and then the transverse axis is parallel to the x-axis, then the foci here is the same as your H, but you are going to add it with, or add or minus it with C. So to the right ka mag-add ka C, and then to the left mag-minus ka og C from the H, and then copy your K. Then the vertices Since pareha raman sila, they are collinear with the foci. So that's why the same situation ang HK ra imong gamiton, but you have to add or subtract A from your H and then copy your K. And then we have the equation. So lahi na po ni siya nga equation nga naman. So kung asa mo parallel ang imong transverse axis, adto pud nimo i-denominator ang imong A. Okay? So mahibaw-an na nimo karon ang asa ang parallel, kay mo parallel to x-axis mag-una jud maoy positive ang x minus h, whereas if your transverse axis is parallel to the y, so your y minus k squared will be your positive, and negative na karon si x minus h. Okay, ang dire positive ang h, my x minus h, and then negative ang y minus k. Okay, so ug atong tan-awon the same ra sa ellipse, but minus lamang ang operation between x minus h squared and y minus k squared. And then another thing is the formula to find the b is b squared equals c squared minus a squared. Si c may taas, so si mo ay minusan. Okay, then the equation of asymptotes, because when we draw or write when we draw a hyperbola, what are we going to do is we have to plot the center and then the vertices and the foci, and then afterwards i-draw pud nimo ang imong, or i-plot pud nimo ang duha points. We have the co-vertices, and then after that you are going to draw the auxiliary rectangle, and then we have the asymptotes. So importante po ning asymptote sumud kay mao na si Jay imong kanang basihan that the parabola is asymptotic to these two lines. Nga dili sila molapas. Okay? And this is the graph for parabola with transverse axis parallel to the y-axis. Okay? So let's proceed now to example number 1. So example number 1 is we are going to write an equation of a hyperbola in general form whose foci are at -1, -10, and -110, and whose transverse axis has the length of 16 units. So notice that to write an equation, we need to have the values of your A, then your B, and then the center, and we need to identify unsay position sa atong transverse axis and the position, because kung di ta kahibaw sa position sa atong transverse axis, maglisod ta og identify pod o unsay atong gamiton nga formula, di ba? Okay, but before that, first is we are going to find the center, since we are given two vertices foci di. We are given two foci, foci 1, which is -1, -10, and the second one is foci 2, which is -1, +10. Okay, so in order to find the center, since sa atong discussion ganina, so notice that the center is the middle point of the two foci. So that's why we are going to use the formula of getting the midpoint. So again, to find the midpoint, we have x sub 1 plus x sub 2 all over 2. Then y sub 1 plus y sub 2 all over 2. Okay. So therefore, substituting, we have substituting x sub 1 and x sub 2, we have negative 1 plus negative 1 all over 2, and then negative 10 plus 10 all over 2. And simplifying, we can have negative 2 over 2 and then 0, 2. So the center therefore is at negative 1, 0. Okay, so this will be our center. And then after that, we learn, or we are given that the length of the transverse axis is 16 units. And we know that the formula of getting, or the length of the transverse axis is 2a, diba? So 2a equals 16. So this gives us the value of a, which is 16 divided by 2, which is 8. Okay? And then, to find the distance from the center to focus, we have the C. So to find the C, we are going to find the C is equal to the absolute value of, dili na nato i-subtract ang mga x nila kay designer man sila, no? So diretso rata sa negative 10 minus 10. So therefore, I know it's the from the F1 to the center. So pareha raman sila, negative 1. So negative 10 minus 0. Okay, so it's negative 10 minus 0 is equal to the absolute value of negative 10, or equal to 10. So your C there is 10. So 10 units. So from the center to focus is 10. Okay, so to find the B, we are going to use the formula B squared is equal to C squared, kasi sa may taas, minus so C squared minus A squared. So this will be equal to, your C is 10, so 10 squared minus 8 squared, which will give us 100 minus 64. And the difference of 100 minus 64 is 36, and that will be our B squared. So your B here is plus minus 6. Okay, so if we are going to plot the F1 and F2, we have here negative 1, 10 sa babaw, dere, o negative 1, negative 10 here. So meaning, if we are going to connect the two foci, that means the transverse axis or the focal axis is parallel to the y-axis. So that is why, since it is parallel to the y-axis, meaning ang y nato, y minus k nato, mao na si Jai, atong positive. So meaning, sa nagpadon ha, our B here is 6. Padon kay maghimot sa equation. Okay. So, ang atong equation would be quantity y minus k squared over a squared minus quantity x minus h squared over b squared is equal to 1. So our h here is negative 1 and our k is 0. So it would be y minus 0 squared over your a is 8 minus quantity x minus your h there is negative 1 over your b is 6. So this is 6 squared equals 1. And then simplifying this one, we have y minus 0 is y squared minus, this becomes quantity x plus 1. Ang over ani is 64. Ang over po ani is 36 equals 1. And multiplying to eliminate the two denominators, 64 and 36, we are going to multiply everything by the product of 64 and 36, which is equal to 2,304. Okay, so 2,304 times y squared over 64. So the answer would be 36 times y squared. Okay, then minus 2,304 divided by 36, then the answer is 64 times the product of quantity x plus 1 squared is equal to x squared. Then the product of x times 1 times 2 is positive 2x. Then the square of 1 is 1 is equal to 2,304. Okay, simplifying further, we now have 36y squared minus 64 times x squared is negative 64x squared. Negative 64 times 2x is negative 128x. And negative 64 times 1 is negative 64 minus 2,304 equals 0. So this becomes negative na kay pang positive. Then it transfers to the other side. Nahimong negative 2,304. And then arranging the terms, we have 36y squared minus 64x squared minus 128x. Then combining these two together, we can now have negative 2,368 equals 0. Okay, so that's example number 1. Okay, so next is example number 2. We are to find the equation of hyperbola in general form whose center at 2, negative 2, a vertex at 5, negative 2, and a focus of negative 5, negative 2. Okay, so there's no need, ang ato ang iba tong requirement ra is we are going to find the A and the B and the center. So since we have already the center, which is 2, negative 2. So ang A ra karon is atong solbon ang atong A, which is the distance from the center to a given vertex. So ang atong usa ka vertex 1 kay naaman sa negative 5, negative 2. Okay, so since parihan naman sila og negative ang y or ordinate, so meaning ato ra kuhaan ang is ilang abscissa distance or the absolute value of the difference of the abscissa. So that's why we have the absolute value of 2 minus the negative of 5. So therefore, it becomes the absolute value of Okay, murag nabaylo man ang akong situation diri, no? So, sa atong nagbaylo ang focus o vertex. So, dapat ang vertex di ay sa atong given at i-change murag nawa ning akong kuan ha. So, ang sa atong look at sa atong syllabus nga akong gihatag, syllabus sa akong module nga gihatag, ang vertex is positive di any. So, nagbaylo na. This is vertex and this is the focus. Diba? So, nalibat ra ang naghimo sa PowerPoint. Pasaylo gamay. Okay, so atong i-correct. Ang atong vertex 1 is at -5, -2, and then ang atong focus 1 is at 5, focus 1 is at no, ang vertex is positive eh. Positive. Unsa ang atong focus mo ay -5, -2. Oy, di man masuwat. Okay. Okay. So, to find the A, it should be, wala na mao. Okay, ang sa focus and C na siya. So, it should be 2 minus 5. So, 2 minus 5, that's why we have the absolute value of -3 or equal to 3. So, your A is 3 units. And then, to find the B, maglisod pa tanong, kaya ang given kay focus man o vertex. So, C sa iuna ng pangitaon. So, it's the distance from the center to one focus, which is the absolute value of 2 minus the negative of 5. And this would be equal to the absolute value of 2 plus 5 or the absolute value of 7. So, the absolute value of 7 is 7. So, from here, to find the B, we are going to use the equation which is B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. So, since our C is 7, so we have 7 squared here minus 3 squared. So, 7 squared is 49 minus 9. And the answer would be 40. So, your B, therefore, is the square root of, or the plus minus the square root of 40. Or, this is equal to plus minus 2 square root of 10. Because 40 is 4 times 10 and the square root of 4 is 2 square root of 10. Okay? So, after ana is we are now to plot ato kuno i-plot B asa dapit karon ang atong position sa atong transverse axis. So, the center is 2, -2. So, we have here 2, -2 is here. This is the center. And our A, one vertex is 5. So, 2, 3, 4, 5, -2 is here. And then the focus, one focus is -5, -2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5, -2 is here. So, meaning, ang imong A and ang imong focal axis and the transverse axis is parallel to the x-axis. So, therefore, the equation nga atong i-follow is quantity x minus h squared over a squared minus quantity y minus k squared over b squared is equal to 1. So, since our center is 2, 2, so therefore 2, -2, so this will be our h and this will be our k. So, substituting into the formula, so therefore we can now have x minus 2 squared over your a is, what's your a? We have 3 squared. A squared man no. Minus quantity y minus k squared over b squared. So, naa naman ta diri b squared which is 40. Pwede i-copy na ni mo dadyon. Or square root of 40 squared equals 1. So, simplifying, we now have quantity x minus 2 squared over 9 minus, ato na ni pulihan di ay y minus the negative of 2. Minus the negative of 2. So, therefore, mahimo na ni quantity y plus 2 squared all over 40 equals 1. So, after that, we need to multiply both sides by 9 times 40, or it is equal to 360 in order to eliminate 9 and 40. So, multiplying 360 times this one. So, ma-cancelled out si 360 o 9. So, what will be left is 40 quantity. Simplifying this one, we have x squared minus 4x plus 4. Diba? So, square ani, then the product will be multiplied by 2. So, we have negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 4. Minus 360 times this one, it becomes 9. Okay, we can cancel the 40, and what is left is 9 times quantity. Simplifying this, we now have y squared plus 4y plus 4 equals 360. Okay, so simplifying by distributing the number outside of the quantity to be distributed inside to each term inside the quantity. So we have 40 times x squared is 40x squared. 40 times negative 4x is negative 160x. 40 times positive 4 is equal to positive 160. Then minus negative 9 times y squared is negative 9y squared. Then negative 9 times 4y is negative 36y, and negative 9 times 4 is negative 36. Then adding both sides with negative 360 to make the right side be 0. So this becomes 360 equals 0. So simplifying further, we can now have 40x squared. Then we have minus 9y squared. And then copy negative 160x. Then copy also minus 36y. And then combining 160 minus 36. Then minus 360. Pwede po, negative 360 plus 160 is negative 200 plus negative 36 is negative 236 equals 0. Okay, so any question? If you have some questions, just PM me anytime. So let us now proceed to example number 3. So by the way, ug kapod siya mo tanaw sa bugat kaadyo nga taas kaadyo nga kana video lesson ato karon pwede ra mo i-chunk laman juhay chop ba. So pwede ko later na po ang example number 3, later na po ang example number 4. So ana ra lang. Okay, so example number 3, we are going to express the given standard form. We have 9x squared minus 16y squared minus 54x plus 64y minus 127 is equal to 0. So in order to express this one in standard form, so what we're going to do is we are going to first ipangtapad-tapad ang atong mga terms nga na ay nagkapareha o variables. So meaning si 9x squared taparan nato ni 54x. Then si minus 16y squared with positive 64y. And then the constant term will be transposed to the other side. So, mahimong 127. Okay. After that, we are going to factor this, the common factor, and then immediately complete the square. So notice that 9 and negative 54 has, or they have common factor 9. So 9 quantity x squared minus 6x. And after that, so since ato mang i-complete ang square dadjon, so negative 6 will be divided by negative 6 will be divided by 2, or we are going to multiply negative 6 times 1/2, so the answer is negative 3, and that negative 3 will be squared so that it will be equal to 9 to complete the square. Okay, then for here na po, there is a common factor which is negative 16, and negative 16y squared divided by 16 is we have y squared, and positive 64y divided by negative 16 is negative 4y. And then completing the squares, so this negative 4 will be multiplied by 1/2, so we can now have negative 2, and squaring negative 2, the answer is positive 4 equals 127. But since ug atong banta dyan, kabantay ta, we are adding 9 here and 4. But since si 9, kaya i-multiply man 9 outside, so actually, we are not adding 9, but we are adding 9 times 9, which is 81. So mag-add 81 sa right side. And at the same time, mo subtract ka og negative 6, mo add ka negative 16 times 4, or the same as subtracting 64. Okay? So from here, we can now change this one, expressing this one as the square of a binomial. So we have 9 quantity x minus 3 squared minus 16, and this can be expressed as y minus 2 squared. And combining together 127 plus 81 minus 64, so the answer is 144. Okay, from here, since dapat ang atong right side mahimo mang 1, we need to divide everything by 144. Ano itong target, no? So, 144. That's why dividing 9 over 144, we can cancel the 9. So, kung sa'y mahibilin sa denominator, we have 16. Diba? Minus 16 over 144. The answer would be pila? 1 over 9 equals 1. Okay, so from here, we can say that the center is at 3, 2. And then the position of the transverse axis is horizontal because the x part is positive. So, kay positive man ang atong x part, meaning horizontal ta. Horizontal. No? Okay, so from here, na-express na nato, sakto na ng atong answer kani. But, ato namang i-elaborate pa nga ang atong a square diha is 16, giving us the value of a is equal to 4. And our b squared is 9, giving us the value of b, which is 3. Or plus minus, no? And, so since our a is 4, therefore the transverse axis, the length of transverse axis is 8, and the length of conjugate axis is equal to 6. Okay? to find the c squared, we are going to add a squared plus b squared. Kay mubo ba dya ang duha? Si dya may taas. Okay? So therefore, we are going to add 16 plus 9, which is equal to 25. So therefore, your C is plus minus 5 or pwede na positive 5. So 2C therefore is equal to 10. Okay? Sige. So let's proceed to example number 4. Okay, so we have to delete na siguro sketch the graph. We have to write the equation or express in standard form the given, which is 4y squared minus 25x squared minus 24y minus 50x minus 89 is equal to 0. Okay, so from here, okay, actually sa atong illustration diri sa atong kuan is we are not to sketch the graph but to write an equation in standard form. So we are to copy 4y squared minus 25x squared minus 24y minus 50x minus 89 is equal to 0. So from here again, combining together the y terms and the x terms. Okay, and here 89 now becomes positive because it is being transposed to the other side. So factoring the common factor, we have 4 quantity y squared minus 6y because negative 24 divided by 4 is negative 6y plus dividing negative 6 by 2, we have negative 3, and the square of negative 3 is 9. Minus 25 quantity, negative 25 x squared divided by negative 25 is x squared. Negative 50 divided by negative 25 is positive 2x. Okay, then positive 2 will be divided by 2. We have 1 and 1 squared is positive 1 is equal to 89. Then we are actually multiplying 9 times 4, which is 36. And then negative 25 times 1 is negative 25. So, butang po ta diring dapita. Kaya nag-add man ta diring dapita. 9 times 4, which is 36, and negative 25 times 1. So, after that, we are going to factor this out. Kaning duha. So, we can now have 4 quantity y minus 3 squared minus 25 times quantity x plus 1 squared equals, what is the sum of 89 plus 36 minus 25? We have 100. Okay, so since we are going to make the right side be 0, so we have to divide everything by 100. Okay, so 4 over 100 is equal to 25. 1 over 25. So, 25 ang over. Minus, kanina pong 25 over 100 is 1/4. So, we have quantity x plus 1 squared over 4, then equals 1. So, from here, we can conclude that the center is at negative 1. Actually, we arrived na sa atong target. What is the required for us? So therefore, we have h is negative 1 and your k is positive 3. And then 25 would be your a squared, which is equal to 25, giving us the value of a, which is equal to plus minus 5. And your b squared here is 4, implying that b is equal to plus minus 2. Okay, so that means if a is 5, your 2a is equal to 10, your 2b is equal to 4. So when 2a is 10, that means the length of your transverse axis is 10. The length of the conjugate axis is 4. And to find the c is, we have to use the formula c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, which is equal to 25 plus 4. That's why our c squared is 29, giving us the value of c, which is plus minus square root of 29, which is approximately equal to 5.39, or this would give us the length of the focal. The focal is equal to 2 times 5.39, which is equal to 10.78. Okay? Sige. So let's proceed now to the last example we have, which is an application of the topic to real life problems. So what we are going to do is to write an equation of the hyperbola that models the size of the guitar. If the length of the auxiliary rectangle drawn is 10 inches and the width is 6 inches, assume that the center of the hyperbola indicated by the intersection of the dashed perpendicular lines in the figure is the origin of the coordinate plane. Okay, so we have here the situation. Okay, mga na si Jeno. So, kani may atang i-consider na hyperbolic na part. So, the given situation is we have kani ko no dinhi, di ba mo ni ang auxiliary rectangle, so 10 inches ang iyang length, so mo ni si J10. So that means that represents your 2a, di ba? Sakto ba? Okay. Okay, 2a is 10 and your 2b is 6. Okay, so from here we have a is equal to 5 and your b is equal to 3. So after that, since the center is at the origin, so meaning 0, 0, so since we assume that the hyperbola is the transverse axis of the hyperbola is naa sa y-axis, so therefore the equation would be a y minus k squared over a squared minus quantity x minus h squared over b squared equals 1. So, ang kanisidya, we assume that the transverse axis is parallel to the y-axis. Okay, so that's why we have y minus 0, quantity y minus 0 squared over your a there is 5 minus quantity x minus 0 squared over your b is 3, so therefore it's 3 squared or 9 equals 1. So therefore, if we are going to simplify further, we have the final equation is y squared over 25 minus, sorry for the correction, dapat minus na siya, no? I-correct dito sa inyong kuan please. No, y squared minus, pakit-check sa inyong solution, sa inyong module, na minus na y squared over 25 minus x squared over 9 equals 1. Okay? So therefore, mao ana na yung final solution. But if we assume nga ang atong center gihapon is 0, 0 and the transverse axis is parallel to the x-axis, ang mahitabo maana na pud na nga quantity x minus h squared over a squared gihapon minus quantity y minus k squared over b squared equals 1, because war ba gibutang sa problem di ay nga asa perpendicular ang atong transverse axis. So pwede si jag duha ka solution. So that's why we have x minus 0 is x squared over your a is 25 minus y minus 0 is y squared over 9 equals 1. So there are two possible solutions in solving this type of problem. Okay? So did you learn something today? I don't hope nga na ay namauhan. And then what you are going to do is to answer the activity given. Activity number 4 na bata? Number 4. Ay, activity number 5 di ay. And the summative test for quarter 1. Okay? So, on na to. So, life is like a hyperbola that though we try to move close, we can. Nga nang di man ito closer. Ang hyperbola ba dyan kay nagbuwag ang opening and then kanang na si J asymptote nga di ka buka ang iyang opening pod kay limited ra to the asymptotes. Okay? So, that's all for this time. Thank you sa pagpaminaw sa mga students na die hard ka sa akong lesson nga maminaw gihapon. So, thank you and God bless you everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye!